Welcome to this explainer. Today we are tackling something that feels incredibly urgent right now, even though the wisdom we're unpacking is actually ancient. It's this endless, exhausting cycle of consumption we're all caught up in. We live in a world that literally screams at us that we constantly need more. More clothes, the newest gadgets, more food, unlimited screen time. But what if the actual secret to finding real peace isn't getting more, but intentionally choosing less? Let's dive right into it.
So I want you to ask yourself right now, do your desires actually have a limit? It's a pretty heavy reflection, right? We spend honestly so much of our lives just acquiring stuff, but at a certain point, we kind of have to stop and ask, do we own our possessions, or are our possessions starting to own us? When our desires are totally boundless, we're basically stuck running on a treadmill. We're exhausted, we're constantly moving, but we never actually arrive at satisfaction. To figure out how to step off that treadmill, let's look at Section 1. What are upabhog and paribhog?
Okay, so according to these ancient texts, everything we consume essentially falls into one of two simple buckets. First up is upabhog. These are your single-use consumables. Think about the food on your plate, that morning cup of coffee, or even a fresh flower garland. Once you use it, that's it. It's gone. It can't be reused by you or anyone else. Then, on the other side, we have paribhog. These are items meant for repeated use over a period of time. So your wardrobe, your car, the house you live in. Now, the ancient wisdom suggests something really profound. Making a conscious vow to set strict limits on both upabhog and paribhog is absolutely crucial. Why? Well, because if we don't put hard boundaries on our external consumption, our internal desires are just going to run wild and overrun our mental and spiritual boundaries.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, the universe and our desires.
There's this incredible quote from the source material. The universe appears exactly as the vision with which we look at it. It's so true, isn't it? If you look at the world through a lens of scarcity and greed, you're always going to feel like you're falling short. You'll just see a world full of endless things you don't have. But switch that up. Look at the world through a lens of contentment, and suddenly you realize you're surrounded by abundance. The texts explain that we are active participants in nature, and the universe actually molds itself to our mindset.
And here is where it gets really interesting. When you consciously give up a desire, the universe actually stops tempting you with it. The source gives this brilliant, totally relatable example. Imagine you decide you're going to buy a specific model and color of a car. Suddenly, the minute you step out of your house, you start seeing that exact car everywhere, like at every single intersection. Now, the cars were always there, but your mind has now completely focused on them. It works the exact same way in reverse. When you intentionally take a vow to limit a certain desire, let's say you decide I am absolutely done eating this specific unhealthy food, your brain just stops highlighting it. You could literally walk right past a mountain of it at a buffet, and it wouldn't even register. By setting a boundary, you take command of your attention, and the universe literally clears that temptation right out of your path.
But what happens when we completely fail to set those limits? Let's get into a pretty intense cautionary tale in Section 3, the fall of Shubham Chakravarti.
So, this ancient story starts with something as simple as a bowl of hot kheer, which is a sweet rice pudding. Emperor Shubham Chakravarti was so incredibly addicted to the pleasure of food that he literally could not wait for his meal to cool down. In his totally unchecked impatience, instead of eating with his hands, which, as the ancient wisdom points out, would have naturally warned him that the food was way too hot, he used a spoon. Naturally, the boiling kheer severely burned his mouth. Blind with rage and showing a complete lack of emotional limits, he actually picked up the scalding pot and hurled it at his cook. The poor cook suffered horrific burns and died. But the story absolutely doesn't end there. The cook died with this immense anger and a desperate desire for revenge. According to the lore, he reincarnated as a powerful supernatural being, a Dave, who was absolutely determined to destroy the emperor.
And this kicks off the emperor's dramatic descent. It starts innocently enough. A merchant, who is actually the vengeful Dave in disguise, presents the emperor with this incredibly rare, sweet, exotic fruit. Now, because the emperor has zero vows of limitation, he just eats them and quickly develops a massive daily addiction. He feels like he literally cannot live without this fruit. So, when the merchant suddenly claims, hey, I've run out, but there's plenty more across the ocean, the emperor's unchecked desire makes him break all of his territorial limits. He throws his entire family onto a ship just to chase this pleasure. And then comes the ultimate downfall. Out in the middle of the sea, the merchant reveals his terrifying true form. The emperor panics and tries to chant a protective mantra, but the Dave totally plays on his fear, tricking him into attempting to write the holy mantra on the water and then immediately erasing it with his foot. The very second he commits this hugely disrespectful act out of blind panic, his protective karma shatters. The Dave drowns him and his entire family. All of this, an entire empire lost simply because the man couldn't put a limit on his taste buds.
And this isn't just an ancient Eastern concept. We see the exact same warning pop up in classic literature. Section 4, How much land does a man need?
This is a brilliant story by Leo Tolstoy. A farmer gets offered what sounds like the deal of a lifetime in a foreign land. For a single flat fee, he can have as much land as he can walk around in a single day. There's just one rule. He has to return to his exact starting point by sunset. So at sunrise, he takes off running. And the greed, it kicks in immediately. By the afternoon, he's pushing himself further and further because he keeps seeing more lush, beautiful land just over the next hill. He completely ignores his raging thirst. He ignores his blistering exhaustion, entirely driven by this massive desire for just a little bit more. As the sun finally begins to set, absolute panic sets in. He sprints back with every single ounce of his remaining strength, his heart just pounding out of his chest. Just as the sun vanishes, he dives across the finish line and collapses, completely dead from exhaustion.
Which brings us to the really grim climax, represented by the number 3. After running all day long, literally sacrificing his life for miles and miles of property, the local chief digs a grave for the dead farmer. The only land the man actually needed in the very end? 3 yards. 3 yards for his grave. It is such a powerful universal reminder that boundless consumption ultimately just consumes us.
So how do we actually apply this wisdom today? Let's check out Section 5, This Vow in Modern Life.
Look, our modern habits are built entirely around this illusion of unlimited. We go to these endless buffets where literally tons of food gets wasted. We buy into fast fashion, even though statistics show most of us only wear about 20% of our clothes 80% of the time. We demand unlimited data plans and just scroll through bottomless social media feeds for endless screen time. Pitted against all of this, we have ancient wisdom, and it teaches the exact opposite, taking only what you can physically eat, curating a deliberately limited wardrobe, and preserving your mental and spiritual capacity. The texts remind us of something really important. Just because something is available doesn't mean it's meant to be consumed without a boundary. So here is how you can make this incredibly practical. The source material gives us some very actionable steps that you can literally start right now to implement this vow of limitation. First, take only what you can finish at a buffet. It seems super small, but committing to leaving a clean plate with absolutely zero waste is a really profound practice of limiting your upabhog. Second, put a limit on the number of clothes you purchase. You really don't need a brand new outfit for every day of the year. Set a hard cap on your wardrobe. Third, restrict your daily app usage. You might have gigabytes of storage on your phone, but your attention span is fragile. Put hard limits on your screen time. And finally, stop wasting water. Don't take a full glass if you're just going to take one sip and leave the rest to be poured down the drain. Just take exactly what you need.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a single, really powerful question to think about. How will you limit your consumption starting today? Remember, setting limits is not about punishing or depriving yourself. It's actually about freeing yourself. It's about making sure that you are the master of your desires and not the other way around. Take a good look at your life. Find just one area where your consumption feels totally limitless and draw a boundary. You might just find that by wanting less, you suddenly have absolutely everything you need.